Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. I didn't catch her cheating. I didn't read her texts. I didn't follow her. I just stood in the kitchen doorway and listened. It was 8:43 p.m. She was drinking rosé with her friends, Cassandra, Talia, and Erica. They were 2 glasses in. My wife Fiona had her socks half off, one leg crossed, laughing like she was in a commercial. The Bluetooth speaker played soft jazz. The windows fogged slightly from the heat inside. Everything felt fake. Because then it happened. She said, "He's handy at work but useless in bed." Like it was a compliment sandwiched in a punchline. Cassandra choked on her drink, laughing. Erica muttered, "Yikes." Talia, the only one with an ounce of decency, looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Not one of them asked, "Why would you say that about your husband?" And Fiona, she grinned, looked proud, sipped her wine, and added, "He folds towels like a machine, kisses like a cousin." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I was just a shadow behind the kitchen wall, holding a basket of clean laundry like it was a shield. That laundry had one of her cardigans folded neatly on top. She used to love when I did that. I stood there for a full minute, then walked upstairs quietly, sat on the floor, and unpacked every memory I had of her. Her late-night work events. Her laughter when I walked into a room like I'd interrupted something. The way she started wearing perfume again, but never for me. She never cheated physically. At least not that I know. But emotionally, she left a long time ago. The woman I folded socks for was mocking me to a wine-drunk audience of enablers. And that's when I stood up, grabbed her suitcase, and began packing. Not rage packing. Careful, precise. Like how I rebuild engine parts at the shop. Like how I iron her blouses before interviews. Downstairs, the party was still going. More laughter. I walked in with her packed bag. She looked at me like I was a ghost. "What are you doing?" I set the suitcase by the door and said, "If I'm so useless, you won't need me tonight." She stood up. Cassandra whispered, "Oh my God." Fiona blinked. "You heard that?" "All of it," I said. "And more than you know." There was silence. Then someone behind her spoke. Erica, no. Talia, no. It was Cassandra. She stepped forward and said, "Honestly, I'll stay with you. She doesn't deserve you." She didn't leave immediately. No. Fiona stood there, staring at the suitcase like it was a dead animal on the porch. Cassandra, of all people, was the first to move. She walked past Fiona and sat down on the arm of our couch like she lived here. No shame, no hesitation. Her glass of wine still in her hand. She tilted her head toward me and said, "You really folded her clothes before packing them." I nodded. "I always do." Fiona's voice cracked. "Are you serious right now? Cass, you're not helping." But Cassandra didn't even look at her. "You humiliated him in his house. You joked about him like he wasn't a person. I'm sorry, Fiona, but you lost the right to be offended." I'd never heard anyone talk to Fiona like that, not even her own sister. She wasn't used to consequences, and she sure as hell wasn't used to silence from me. I picked up her coat from the back of the dining chair. "You forgot this." She didn't take it. She just stood there, arms folded, waiting for the moment to shift in her favor. But it didn't. Instead, Cassandra stood up and walked toward the front door. "Come on," she told Fiona. "Let's go." "I'm not going anywhere with you," Fiona snapped. "You're just mad I didn't pick your side during your divorce." That hit a nerve. Cassandra stopped in her tracks. "Oh, you mean when I found out my husband was cheating and you told me to be sexier and deal with it? Yeah, thanks for the support." Fiona's face went pale. Her eyes darted to me, hoping I'd cut in. I didn't. Instead, I stepped outside and set her suitcase gently on the porch. "You don't have to go far," I said. "Just not here." That's when she finally moved. She grabbed her coat, yanked her purse from the kitchen counter, and slammed the door behind her. I thought that was the end of it, but it wasn't. 15 minutes later, I was in the laundry room dumping out every towel I'd just folded because I couldn't stand the idea of them carrying the scent of her perfume, when I heard the front door open and close softly. I stepped out. Fiona was back, but this time, she wasn't alone. Talia had returned with her, and Fiona was crying. She left her laptop, Talia whispered, as if she needed to defend the intrusion. Fiona looked at me with wet eyes, mascara streaked. Can we just talk, please? And for a moment, just a flicker, I almost nodded. Until Cassandra's voice rang out from upstairs. Gil, where do you keep the extra blankets? Fiona froze. Talia's eyes widened. And I just smiled a little and said, Top shelf, closet by the stairs. Fiona didn't say a word for several seconds. Her eyes darted toward the stairs, then back to me, then to Talia, who looked like she regretted ever getting in the car with her. The silence wasn't just awkward. It was thick, like smoke. You could feel the tension crackling in the air. I leaned against the doorway, arms folded, and waited. Not because I had anything clever to say, but because for the first time in years, I wasn't the one explaining myself. Fiona finally broke the silence. She's still here. Why? You let her stay? I tilted my head. You're worried about Cassandra now? Talia stepped in like a referee. Maybe it's not the time for— No, Talia, Fiona snapped, turning on her. You said this would be quick. Grab the laptop and go. I didn't know she was upstairs, Talia muttered. And I didn't think you'd walk in here like you're the victim. I should have said something sharp or noble or cold. Instead, I walked over to the closet, pulled the laptop bag from the shelf and handed it to her. There, take it. Fiona hesitated. Gil, I didn't mean what I said. It was stupid. You know I exaggerate when I'm drinking. That was her go-to excuse for the passive insults, the disappearing affection. The nights she fell asleep at her friend's house after girls' night. Wine, vodka, gin. Always someone else's fault. Exaggerate? I said, taking a step closer. Do you exaggerate when you laugh at me to a room full of people or when you flirt with bartenders while I'm parking the car? Her face flushed. That's not fair. No, I said. What's not fair is working 11-hour shifts and coming home to a wife who thinks my love is a joke. And right then, just as her mouth opened to respond, the doorbell rang. Fiona looked at me, confused. You expecting someone? No, I said. But you are. I opened the door. It was Erica, the other friend from the wine night. The one who stayed quiet but smirked the most. Except this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a man, tall, confident, wearing a jacket I recognized from Fiona's closet because I once found a receipt for it tucked under her side of the bed. A men's jacket, size large. I'd asked her back then, and she said it was for her brother. She's an only child. Erica blinked. Oh, you're all here. The man looked uncomfortable. I think we came at a bad time. Fiona's voice cracked. What are you doing here? I stepped aside and gave them a long, slow look. Please come in. Erica hesitated. Gil, we should maybe— I insist, I said, smiling without warmth. Let's all be useless together. Erica walked in with the kind of confidence that can only be brewed by secrets and wine. The man behind her hesitated at the threshold. He didn't want to be there. I saw it in how he looked at the floor, at me, at Fiona. Not once did he meet her eyes. Fiona stood frozen in the hallway, gripping her laptop like it was a weapon or a shield. Talia whispered something I didn't catch and slipped out the door like a ghost, clearly done playing referee in a game that had no rules. I didn't know you all would be here, Erica said, glancing around like she was doing a real estate walkthrough. Didn't you? I asked. Calm. Too calm. Fiona's voice cracked again. Why are you here? Erica tilted her head. Oh, come on. You texted me. You said you needed to talk. Said you left something important behind. I meant my laptop. Erica smiled like a cat that caught a mouse by accident and decided to keep it. Well, I brought him. Figured it was time we all stopped pretending. That's when I looked at the guy again. He was young. Not that much younger, but younger enough to matter. He was wearing boots, still dirty from some job site. Calloused hands, a mechanic, roofer. He didn't look rich, but he looked familiar. Fiona's lips barely moved. I didn't ask you to bring him. Erica shrugged. You told me last week you didn't care who found out anymore. And there it was. The thread pulled loose. Fiona turned to me, but I raised a hand before she could start her performance. No, I said quietly. Let's hear what Erica has to say. She seems to know things I don't. Erica smirked, but it faded quickly. You really don't know. I didn't blink. You're the one who laughed the hardest when she called me useless. You tell me. Erica looked at Fiona, then back to me. They've been seeing each other for 3 months. She said she needed Spark. He's her Spark. The man behind her flinched like he'd been slapped. Fiona's voice dropped to a whisper. It was a mistake. I took a breath. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Which part? Sleeping with him, or saying I was only good at folding towels? She didn't answer. Cassandra appeared at the top of the stairs, hair messy, sweater hanging off one shoulder. She paused when she saw the crowd, then looked straight at me. Do you want me to leave? Fiona's head snapped up. You stayed the night? Cassandra raised an eyebrow. You left, and you were going to spend the night with your Spark, weren't you? Erica glanced at Fiona, half smiling, half stunned. The young man slowly backed toward the door. I laughed then. Not a dramatic laugh, a tired, empty one. Is this what you all call relationships now? Cheap thrills and wine nights full of insults? Fiona took a step forward. Gil, please. I didn't know. I cut her off. You knew exactly who I was. You just thought I'd never grow a spine. I walked past all of them, opened the door, and looked at the guy. You should go. You've done enough damage for someone who can't even make eye contact. He nodded, said nothing, and left. Fiona stood in the middle of the room, mascara smudged, shoulders trembling. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I felt clear. Cassandra came down the stairs, looked at me, and whispered, You okay? I nodded. I think I finally am. And then the doorbell rang again. And that changed everything. The chime of the doorbell still echoed in the room when we all turned toward it like puppets on strings. Fiona wiped her eyes quickly as if she still believed she could pull off control. Erica clutched her wine glass like it was a microphone. Cassandra stood beside me now, one hand barely brushing mine, an anchor I didn't know I needed. And then it happened. The door opened. No knock, no hesitation. It just opened because whoever was on the other side had a key. And that was when my stomach dropped. There was only one person other than Fiona and me who had a copy. Her mother, Judith. She stepped in with a floral scarf, a too-firm hairstyle, and that constant look of judgment she wore like a badge. But what made it worse, what made my blood freeze, was that she didn't look surprised. Not by the crowd, not by the tension, not even by Cassandra in her pajamas, or Fiona standing like a statue near the fireplace. She looked ready. Her eyes found me first. Oh, good, she said crisply. You finally found out. I didn't speak. None of us did. She turned to Fiona. I told you it would happen eventually. You're careless when you're bored, just like your father. Fiona's mouth fell open. Mom, what are you even doing here? Judith stepped fully inside and shut the door behind her. You left your birth certificate in my desk drawer. I figured you'd need it for your new apartment or whatever it is you're doing now. Fiona looked horrified. You told me you shredded that. I lied, her mother said simply, like she was talking about the weather. Then she handed Fiona the envelope and turned back to me. You deserve better than her. I told you that at the wedding. You were just too lovesick to listen. Erica snorted. Well, this got awkward. No, Judith said sharply, eyes locking onto her. It got honest. I watched Fiona crumble in real time. The mask, the pride, the performance. All of it collapsed. I wasn't sure whether it was the affair, Cassandra, or now her mother exposing everything like a spotlight through glass. And then Judith stepped closer to me, reaching into her coat pocket. I tensed. She pulled out an old photograph, folded, creased, slightly stained. It was of Fiona and me at our engagement dinner. She was laughing. I looked like a man who thought he'd won something. Judith looked at the photo, then handed it to me. You were always the better one. You just forgot. For a moment, nobody moved. And then quietly, Fiona said, So what now? You want him? Be my guest. It was venomous, pitiful, like a dog barking with no bite left. But before I could respond, Cassandra did. She stepped forward, eyes blazing. No, he wants respect, something you haven't given him in years. Fiona scoffed. What do you even know about our marriage? Cassandra didn't blink. I listened. Every time you called him pathetic, every time you rolled your eyes when he tried to surprise you, you never saw him. Not really. And that was it. That was the final straw. Not the affair, not the insults, not even the guy with the jacket. It was realizing that everyone else had noticed what I refused to. I wasn't loved. I was tolerated, used, and now discarded. But I wasn't broken. Not anymore. Judith didn't sit down. She stood in the middle of the room like a prosecutor in a courtroom she built herself. Fiona leaned against the wall like she was ready to slide down it. Erica had moved to the far side of the room, her wine glass finally empty, her expressions no longer smug, just confused. Cassandra hadn't said a word since her last outburst, but she didn't leave my side. That mattered more than I could process. Judith reached into her purse again, and for a second, I thought she might pull out another photo or maybe a list of grievances like she always carried in her voice. But this time, she handed me something thicker. An envelope, sealed, my name written in her precise handwriting. I didn't open it right away. What is this? I asked cautiously. Proof, she said. Proof of what? That your instincts were never wrong. Fiona's face drained of what little color it had left. You didn't. Judith turned her head slowly toward her daughter. Of course I did. You used me as an alibi, remember? The silence that followed wasn't tense. It was electric, dangerous. Judith's eyes never left Fiona. How many times did you tell him you were at my place when you were with him? Fiona took a shaky breath. It was one night. Try 7, Judith said. And 2 of those nights, I called Gilbert to ask if you made it home safe. He told me you were still at my place, which clearly you weren't. I swallowed hard and finally opened the envelope. Inside was a printed email exchange. Judith had forwarded Fiona's reservation confirmations from a private cabin rental service. Dates, times, 2 names on the guest list. Not mine. The second name was redacted, but I didn't need to read it to understand. The receipts, the location, the lies. It all clicked. Fiona whispered, You betrayed me. Judith fired back. You betrayed yourself. She turned to me again and said something I never expected from the woman who used to glare at me over Thanksgiving stuffing. You're not blameless, Gilbert. You were quiet when you should have spoken. You let her control the narrative. But you never disrespected her, not once. You loved her the way every mother hopes her daughter is loved, and she spit on it. Fiona looked ready to break something. You always hated that I married him. Judith didn't flinch. Because I knew you weren't ready. You thought love meant attention. Gilbert gave you stability, and you got bored. There it was. Truth. Unfiltered. Cold, but accurate. Judith walked over to the coat rack, grabbed her scarf, and turned toward the door. "You should get a lawyer," she told me. "You deserve more than silence and folded laundry." Before she left, she looked at Cassandra. "You," she said, voice softer now. "Stay. He's going to need someone who sees him." And then, just like that, she was gone. Fiona didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there, numb, defeated, completely exposed in front of people who no longer believed her version of events. Cassandra finally moved. She stepped toward me, touched my hand gently, and whispered, "Do you want her gone now? Or do you need a minute?" I looked around at the room I built, the home I held together while the walls were quietly rotting from the inside. I took a breath and said, "She doesn't live here anymore." Fiona raised her eyes, but I wasn't looking at her. Not anymore. I was already looking forward. I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay on the couch with my arm over my eyes, listening to the creaks of a house that felt emptier than it actually was. Cassandra had offered to stay, even made up the guest room. But somewhere around 3 a.m., I heard her keys jingle and the door click quietly shut. Maybe she thought I needed space. She was probably right. Or maybe she didn't want to be there in case Fiona came back swinging. But Fiona didn't return. Not that night. What did return at exactly 7:04 a.m. was reality. I stepped outside, bleary-eyed, and still in yesterday's clothes to get some air. The street was quiet, sky gray, like it hadn't made up its mind yet. I walked down the steps toward my truck out of pure habit. That's when I saw it. A plain white envelope stuck under my windshield wiper. No name, no handwriting, just silence wrapped in paper. I looked around. No cars passing, no one on the sidewalk, not even Judith's Subaru across the street. Whoever left it wanted to vanish before I found it. I pulled it free, walked back inside, sat at the kitchen table and opened it. Typed, clean, precise. "Gilbert, I couldn't say this last night. Not with everyone there. I know I've done damage I can't undo. You didn't deserve any of it. You were always the safer choice, and I was always chasing chaos, mistaking it for passion. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to tell you that I never stopped loving the way you cared, even if I didn't know how to show it back. Not Cassandra." That last line, it hit like a slap and a confession all at once. Not Cassandra, but not signed by Fiona either. My brain spun through every possibility until it stopped cold on one name. Talia. I stood so fast the chair nearly tipped. Talia. Quiet, always watching, never laughing quite as hard as the others. She left early that night. She looked uncomfortable the moment the first insult slipped out of Fiona's mouth. But most of all, she looked guilty. And now I had a letter from someone who didn't know how to speak out loud, but couldn't walk away in silence either. I didn't know how to feel. My heart was already split open. Was this pity, regret, or something else entirely? I slipped the letter into the drawer and stared out the window, unsure if I was angry, flattered, or both. And then, as if the universe couldn't resist kicking up more dust, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. One message. "You should ask Cassandra why she really stayed." No punctuation, no signature. Just that. For a long moment, I sat motionless. Then I reached for the drawer again, pulled out the envelope, and read it once more. Something didn't add up. Why now? Why her? And who was pulling the strings? I didn't reply to the anonymous text. I didn't call Cassandra either. I needed answers, but not the kind that came through back and forth whispers or half-truths. I wanted clarity. So around noon, I grabbed my coat and drove straight to her apartment. She answered the door in an oversized hoodie, hair pulled back. No makeup, just real. Honest. That alone told me something had changed. "I was expecting you," she said, stepping aside to let me in. I didn't sit down. I pulled the letter from my pocket and held it out. Was this you? Cassandra shook her head without hesitation. No, but I knew about it. Then who wrote it? She hesitated, biting her bottom lip before answering. Talia. She's always had a quiet crush on you. She just never said anything. I blinked, surprised, but it didn't make me angry. I didn't feel betrayed, just tired of layers. And the message I got this morning? Ask Cassandra why she really stayed. That made her go still. She walked to the window and took a breath before turning to face me. Because I've been in love with you for over a year. That night wasn't about revenge. It wasn't pity. It was the first time I saw you choose yourself, and I couldn't let you stand in it alone. I didn't speak for a few seconds. My chest felt both heavy and light at once. The truth didn't crash into me. It settled quietly, like warm rain after a storm. You could have told me, I said softly. I didn't think I deserved to, she replied. Not after laughing at that stupid joke. Not after standing by her for so long. We stood in silence. A different kind this time. One that didn't ache. One that opened the door to something new. I finally smiled. A real one. So what now? She smiled back. Well, you're single, I'm single, and I make a mean cup of coffee. So we sat and talked for hours. Not about Fiona, not about regrets, about books, music, dumb childhood stories, and what healing looked like when two people stopped pretending and just saw each other. I didn't walk away with revenge. I didn't walk away bitter. I walked away with someone who saw me for more than what I could fix or fold or provide. I walked away with peace. And sometimes that's the most shocking ending of all. Thanks for watching this story here on the Reddit Confessions channel. What moment from this story surprised you the most? Was it Fiona's mom, the letter, or Cassandra's final confession? Let us know in the comments.